December. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Atlassian has released information regarding 4 new vulnerabilities covering their Jira and Confluence services or systems. Does seem that some of the customers got sent an email from them with broken links in it, or links to the wrong vulnerabilities. However, rest assured they are real. Rest assured they're real vulnerabilities. But you know what I mean? They are genuinely real vulnerabilities. So CV 2022-1471, 2023-22522, 2023-22524, and 2023-22523. All of them have got CVSS scores above 9. The worst two are 9.8. So the fix is, as always, patch. So if you are using Atlassian solutions, recommend that you take a look, make sure that the components that you've got are upgraded and patched to the latest versions. Came across a very good article in Bleeping Computer this morning, talking about vulnerabilities in Sierra OT IoT routers. Now, it may be that if you're not working in environments where these sorts of where you're providing services via OT, IoT type situations, you may not have come across Sierra routers. I have to say I've never actually worked with them, although I'm aware of them. But they are common, and they're used in environments where, they're very highly regarded in industrial and mission critical situations, because they've got a high performance 3G, 4G, 5G, and Wi-Fi and multi-network connectivity solutions. So they get used in things like the tube Wi-Fi, public transport Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. There are various vulnerabilities that have been discovered. The most severe of which is 2023 41101, which is a remote code execution in OpenDNS, has a CVSS score of 9.6. There's another OpenDNS vulnerability with a score of 8.8. A couple of unauthorized access vulnerabilities in the underlying operating system, which is known as ALEOS. ALEOS. I'm sure they don't pronounce it like that, but since I like ale, we'll call it ALOS. So there's a couple of vulnerabilities, unauthorized access vulnerabilities there, both 8.1. There's cross-site scripting, denial of service vulnerabilities as well. Now, one of the vulnerabilities is a denial of service in the ACE manager, and it's related to TinyXML. It only gets a CVSS score of 7.5, but that's severe enough. However, the reason that one's a little bit concerning is that TinyXML does appear to be abandonware at the moment, so probably not a good thing that Sierra is still relying on this, or if they are relying on this, they should pick up the project and give it some support, or take over managing and running, and or you know what it's like. It's open source. Fork the thing, get a version of your own, and keep it vulnerability free, or at least fix the vulnerabilities as they're found. So there are a fair number of devices out in the world, nearly 70,000 in the States, according to Shodan, of which nearly 64% are not currently patched. Only about 9.5% are patched, and some are unknown, according to the Shodan. So the remediation advice, of course, is to update to ALOS, which is Airlink Embedded Operating System, version 14.17.0, or as an absolute minimum, sorry, I said 14, didn't I? Sorry, 4.17.0, which addresses all of the flaws, or as a minimum, 4.9.9, which contains fixes for all of for those things, except for the OpenDNS captive portals vulnerabilities. So don't expect a quick fix for the TinyXML solution. There are some other recommendations that have been put forward. So changing the default SSL certificates for Sierra wireless routers and other devices, disable or restrict non-essential services, captive portals, telnets, SSH, unless you actually need them for the particular implementation. Using web application firewalling in front of OT or IoT devices, of course, is a very sensible approach. And also, if you can find it, getting OT, IoT aware intrusion detection systems to monitor external, internal network traffic for security breaches. So there are things. I think there are modules within some of the open source stuff. So I suspect Snort and Suricata will be able to identify network, OT, IoT attacks across the network. So certainly something to think about in that space. Other solutions, I'm sure, will also have the same sort of capabilities. Now, finally, from me, there's an interesting article in Dark Reading that sounds, I think, more scary than it really is. And it says Apple lockdown mode bypass subverts key iPhone security feature, which sounds quite scary. So the lockdown mode, which I think was a very good idea on Apple's part, it is designed to restrict the services that your iPhone, if you use one, your iPhone makes available. It effectively hardens an iPhone and is aimed at people who may be subject to sophisticated attacks. So it came off the back of, I think, Apple getting, frankly, fed up with government or pseudo-government type organizations using software like Pegasus to compromise the security of Apple devices, Apple iPhones in particular. And while, yes, there is an argument that law enforcement needs to be able to do this stuff, the reality of the matter is you can't keep a lid on it. And as we all know, Pegasus software has been used in all sorts of nefarious ways by governments who have an absolutely atrocious record on things like human rights. So it is a good idea. Lockdown is a good idea. It isn't, however, anti-malware. It's basically just locking down. It's hardening the device. Which makes it harder for malicious software to get control of the device. What these particular researchers have done is demonstrate that if you have already compromised the device, you can spoof lockdown. I think, though, that kind of misses the point. I think it isn't supposed to be something that protects you if your device has been compromised. It's something that is supposed to make it harder for attackers to compromise the device in the first place. So I think possibly it isn't necessarily disinformation, but I don't think that this particular article has quite um, hit the nail on the head with this. So yeah, if you've compromised your device, well, to a large extent, you can do what the hell you like with it. That is the nature of this sort of stuff, right? However, if you are, let's say, an human rights activist in a nasty part of the world, you probably want your phone to be hardened, even if that takes away a certain amount of functionality, because you're concerned about your attackers may be well funded and very sophisticated, government or criminal organisations. So it makes an interesting read, and it is. I'm sure what they're saying. I think makes perfect sense. Yes, once you have compromised the device, you can do all sorts of things with it, including faking lockdown. Which I suppose would make it difficult for you to know that the device had been compromised. But there are other pieces of software out there that you can, protection that you can get for Apple devices that might also work in parallel with lockdown mode to, provide some security. So have a read of it. I think it is it talks very much along the lines of, it's a good idea, but needs to be implemented better. As in, lockdown's a good idea, it needs to be implemented better. Well, okay, I think that's true. One thing that is true is that the researchers have said, well, as of iOS, now let me get this right. I think as of iOS 17, the protections have been moved. Yes. They've moved the lockdown mode into the kernel, as opposed to previously where a handful of key features were kernel level code, and a lot of the rest of it was user space code. So if you're on the latest versions of iOS, if you've got a modern, up-to-date iPhone running the latest iOS, it is actually much harder to subvert lockdown mode, even if you have already compromised the device, because you're compromising it in user space. You're not compromising the kernel space generally. So things like that would mean that even if an attacker managed to get malware onto your phone, a reboot would probably, as I say in the article, spell doom for an attacker's persistence. So yeah, interesting stuff there. Anyway, that's enough from me for today. I hope you have a really good Wednesday, and I will speak to you again